Ladies and gentlemen, what's happening? Gordie Tamayo here with Behind the Business on the Boise Beat. I'm joined by my co-host Dale King. How you doing today, Dale?
Hey, good to be here.
You too? Yeah, super stoked to have you here. We're gonna jump into this conversation, which we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So I'm gonna kind of try to cruise through this without skipping too much because there's a lot to cover, but a lot of good things that we got to question here and discuss on how it's going to be impacting, you, myself, business owners, people that are listening to this. I think everybody's kind of in the crosshairs here. But international news obviously taking shape over last week with assassination attempt over former President Trump. And I want to talk about that and how it sets the stage for all these other conversations that have been circulating around the web because
It's good.
the world is on fire with news about this shooting that took place over the weekend. And so, real quick though, we just recently, not that long ago, right after that, took place, we got some major news with big influencers in the world, such as Elon Musk, another billionaire hedge fund manager. Can't remember what his name is, but these guys coming out in public support now of former President Trump.
Right.
And not only that, publicly endorsing this candidate, but you got guys like Elon, which nobody ever scratches their head about some of the stuff he says, anyways. But he's backing it up with some say 45 million a month that he's pledging towards a Trump super PAC, and I'm like, dang, serious money, deep pockets, obviously, but he's committing that much money into it. Even said something to the effect of he's thinking about building his own kind of Iron Man-esque suit to protect himself, since he might be, on somebody's radar as well. Big news unfolding, but what are your thoughts initially on the events that took shape over last week and kind of the larger implications as we're going to kind of deep dive into it, of these events that are going to unfold in the future?
Well, it seems that Trump they just keep coming after Trump and he doesn't back down. An interesting thing about Trump, I remember seeing him in the 80s and watching him on talk shows in the 80s and 90s. He's the
Uh-huh.
same guy, but he was never in a street fight in the 80s,
Hmm.
right? I mean, they've been gunning for him for nearly a decade, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
been a
8,
minute.
9 years, and they've been gunning for him and the mainstream media not giving him a break. They have treated him so differently, and, it's kind of intriguing, people say he's really rough and too crass. He has been in a dogfight for 8 years. He's been
Hmm.
fighting,
Yeah,
and he doesn't take it laying down,
yeah.
and if you look at, um I'm kinda getting off here a little bit, but I remember when, Michelle Obama first came in the White House, they were trying to put a muzzle on her.
Hmm.
'Cause she was saying stuff and they're like, "You cannot say this," and after a while, she was well trained and very
Hmm.
pristine and very first lady-ish,
Right.
and, Trump, no one's muzzling him, he's not got anybody out there teaching him how to be on TV, how to be smooth and suave. What you see is what you get, and so, I don't know, they keep coming at him. I think he's just gonna get stronger, he's like Godzilla, right? Every time he hits the power lines, he's supposed to die, and he's like, what happens? He just gets stronger. So, he's like the Godzilla of politics.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. And by the way, for the record, this isn't a conversation about whether you like the guy, whether you hate the guy. I mean, we're talking about it. If you want to debate about it, we can debate about it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
But
observation. I've been looking at politics since I was a kid, since I was high school,
mhm.
and, my best friend got me on the wrong side of the debate, with the high school debate. So, I'm
But
forgiving him for that, but won't even
yeah,
go there, but
let's talk about this because the aftermath of this is like huge PR, right? There's a lot of news circulating around this now, which some say it's good, some say it's bad for Trump and helping him with his reelection possibilities here. But I want to talk about the economic impact of a Trump reelection potentially, right?
right,
So he's been on the forefront of talking about obviously making America great again, putting America first, being tighter on restrictions with how they're doing business with other countries, keeping the dollar as the world's reserve currency, right? That's been something that's been big on the chopping block here. But his stance on immigration, on taxes, on tariffs, some are saying is kind of a recipe for an economic catastrophe. in the United States, right? Or for the US dollar, I should say. Let's
For
talk about, go
Trump's
ahead.
position on those topics?
Correct. Yeah. And and I can elaborate a little bit on kind of where I'm peeling back this and kind of what I've been reading and listening to of why the argument is that that would happen. Um, but I want to tie it into what's been taking shape right after that. So right after the shooting took place, you've seen, a surge in gold prices went up almost 2%. I want to say it was. The price of crypto went up, like 9% for Bitcoin specifically. Um, the US dollar not being backed by gold and Trump not being an avid supporter of crypto in the past, from what I can recall, even though he's scheduled to speak at, I think it is a Bitcoin conference here at the end of this month over in Nashville, where he was. Um, I don't know how that like, all plays into, you know, whether or not some of his policies taking shape are really going to send the shockwaves through the economy in a negative fashion more so than what they would right now. Let me pause on that piece before I jump into my question for you about tariffs, though. I mean, what are your thoughts about his stance on policies around immigration, specifically tariffs and taxes, and how putting all these restrictions would impact the economy and business owners? Because for one, let's talk about the tariffs real quick. You got what what was it? 80 billion in taxes. I want to say it was. Yeah, his tariffs raised taxes by nearly 80 billion on his policies previously. Biden kept most of the tariff policies in place, and it was like an 18 billion tariff increase, specifically towards Chinese goods, which increased taxes by 3.6 billion. So a huge difference between the two. When you're talking about workforces coming in, jobs, taxes, like, is this guy just going to destroy the economy with coming in and doing some of the things that he's talking about? What are your thoughts about it? I know that's a loaded question.
Well, that's a lot of ground to cover. But when he came in 2016, it was a completely different economy,
Hmm.
and he got things moving. And as far as I'm concerned, to give a free open market to foreign countries without tariffs or without consideration of restraint, being the American economy, I think
Hmm.
it's insane. I mean, we're sending all of our money offshore to buy goods.
Hmm.
What are we doing here? And so, but we're in a different place now. We've gone through. I mean, he built things up when he was here before, but now we've gone through a pandemic, and they just destroyed supply chains. And so we're actually building back from the breakdown in the supply chains, which is really difficult. I mean, a lot of people changed
Yeah.
jobs. A lot of companies went out of business. Some companies were reaching out, trying to help their suppliers stay in business. And so, in some ways, we've become more resilient. In other ways, we've become more fragile because we have people with less experience necessarily in the supply chain because things have just moved around.
Yeah.
And it's not a slap on anybody's skills or abilities. It's just the fact that the economy shifted, and I'm not convinced that he can go in and be as tough on tariffs. It sounds like we've kept a lot of those tariffs anyways, but um, we got to be paying attention to what can we build here that we're bringing in from overseas.
Hmm.
I remember looking in 2020. I was looking at I think the 2019. Um, Import going through the port of Seattle,
Hmm.
and I remember seeing $2 billion in pumps.
Mm.
Pumps. Okay, so it's like $2 billion coming in. That's just one thing, one item
Right.
coming out of China, maybe Taiwan, different places. But essentially, it's like we can't even build a house anymore without China having their hand in it.
Mm.
And it's at what point? I mean, we built our wealth in our country because we were manufacturing. And then we did the race to the bottom in the 90s. And then now it's all this reshoring. But then the financial institutions aren't even keeping up,
Hmm.
to really bring in the expertise in finance for small to medium manufacturers, et cetera. And so I know I'm going kind of hard on the manufacturing, but you gave me kind of a broad topic there. But I think we need to be mindful of the fact that this isn't 2016. And so, can he go in and do the exact same stuff? Hopefully, he's going to be a surgeon about this and analyze the situation and come in with the appropriate responses to each of these issues. I think the tariffs. I lot of I went to international events, international import-export events, and people were screaming about the tariffs with China. But I'm like, "But we haven't had politicians stand up for our manufacturers in decades."
Hmm.
And so it's kind of an extreme situation where someone did some extreme actions. Um,
That's a good point.
who's our friends out there? And who's helping us build America and keep America strong? We have to
Yeah.
find those friends and work with them, not with the ones that are exploiting our weaknesses and our weak politicians and statesmen that go overseas and give away our markets.
Yeah. Speaking of friends, and alliances and building the right partnerships, international partners that can help strengthen the economy, help strengthen the country. You hear a lot of news about the BRICS nations, right? You got, what is it? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America, um, or not South America, excuse me, South Africa. Um,
Right,
a lot of conversation taking shape around these specific alliances that are being made. And you even have some new Southeast countries that are joining the list, and you got others that have recently joined the list, such as, let me see here, Saudi Arabia, Iran,
right,
Ethiopia, Egypt, Argentina, and the United Arab Emirates. And what's fascinating about this is that some of these countries are major oil producers, right? Like Saudi Arabia
right,
and the United Arab Emirates, which collectively now, amongst those, it's estimated that it's about 40% of the world's oil production, between these nations now. So it makes them a real important international competitor, if you would, or actor in this
right,
whole conversation that's taking place here. Um, how does that, or how should that affect somebody's concern, a business owner specifically? Because that's the lens we're looking at it through. Of these countries coming together, becoming a world player, challenging their stance on the world stage. Not to mention that they're even looking for options of handling payments, moving away from the U.S. dollar,
right,
which is probably, who knows, probably already done by now. We just haven't heard about it, and it's already in motion. But there's so many of these like factors taking shape that it seems like this thing's such a fine tightrope walk of things just like imploding is what it looks like to me. Like, how should a business owner be looking at this and the effects of the valuation of the US dollar with all these things taking shape, cost of goods, taxes they'd be having to pay into
right,
potentially, all that. Like, what comes to mind screaming as a business owner hearing about these alliances taking place and potentially threatening, our stance on the world stage?
right, right. Well, as of June 9th, our 50-year agreement with Saudi Arabia was complete to be the world reserve for the petrodollar.
Hmm,
Um, that slipped away. That wasn't renewed. How do we
crazy.
gain that back? We're not going to gain that back. That's impossible.
It's
And then you
wild.
see other countries. Would you start seeing little movements that have the potential of trends? We got to pay attention to that. And so you've got other currencies in the great continent of Africa.
Uh-huh.
Where countries are saying, "Hey, listen, we're going to use our own money." And that's as that catches on and that moves forward, what's going to happen? Again, with BRICS and other conglomerations of countries that want to have a strong nation. You're
Mhm.
seeing really a breakdown of the colonialism that held Africa kind of at a standstill with in my opinion, the exploitation of the natural resources,
Mhm.
to these outside countries. So what's going to happen with all of that? And the U.S. is in the mix there because we have so many of our finances that are tied in. I mean, when we look at our gross domestic product, how much of that is actually to the benefit of small enterprises, privately owned businesses, small, medium enterprises? How much of that is based on the conglomerations? And then where's the money held? Is it
Yeah.
going back into building our economy, or is it going back into building corporations that are multinational corporations that run over international boundaries like it's skipping rope? It's just nothing. And so with the increase of these things, I don't see the U.S. dollar getting stronger, but and Biden hasn't shown himself as a strong negotiator. If anything, he was much like Obama, that was kind of giving away the farm. I'm not
Mhm.
really sure with the great American state, the way it's always been and how powerful, why politicians would feel the need to give it away versus negotiate and make it stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're asking, it's like, if Biden gets in, if Trump gets in, well, we see what Biden can do,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen world leaders really kind of act in a way that they respect Trump because they know they can work with him and they can build together. Trump's a builder. I mean, think about the idea of building a skyscraper
Mm-hmm.
and going from the finance, and you go from the planning, and you're actually seeing this building arise from a hole, literally a hole in the ground, to becoming part of the skyline for a city
Mm-hmm.
and changing a skyline forever. And so Trump is used to seeing things built, and he's gone out there and he's built business and built a character built on that. Biden's used to just getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
He's never built anything. He's a politician. And so it's like, does he have the wherewithal in this new economy, especially with BRICS, to actually stand against a block like that? And I mean, NATO is a dangerous machine as it is. I don't think NATO is going to get any stronger and bring any more value to the U.S. I don't see him doing that. In fact, encroaching on Russia and forcing war and all these things, they're breaking agreements. And so
Right.
we're supposed to stand by and be loyal and patriotic about it. But it's like, but the fact is like there was an agreement when the wall came down, and the Soviet Union, contracted and became Russia again, and they released those states from the Soviet bloc. The agreement was those states would not be NATO because Russia didn't want them on their border. Well, we start rolling up on Russia's border, and we're supposed to say, well, geez, you're being bad. You're being really reactionary, and you
Mm-hmm.
just want to take over the world. It's like, no, they're trying to protect their borders, like any
Yeah.
country wants to protect their borders. So, but anyways, I think we're in peril. I don't think anybody that gets the job is going to have smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm.
But whoever gets the job better be a strong negotiator and better make a stand for America and to negotiate in the benefit of Americans' businesses. I mean, when are we going to do that instead of selling them out?
Hmm. Final thoughts on the wake of all this news that has been taking shape over the course of the last week, and I want to tie it into how it ties into getting out in front of the public and being able to communicate to
Right.
the public and the messaging that comes along with that. And so it's undeniable that whether or not somebody agrees that this was legit or staged or whatever it is, that this is going to go down in the history books as one of the greatest, PR campaigns ever, potentially, right? With as much news and media attention that the shooting got over the weekend. And it's interesting, the timing, because it tied into Meta, announcing not long before that they were going to reinstate uh, Trump's accounts on Facebook, Instagram. YouTube was also going to let him back on Twitter. He was already reinstated there. But regardless of that, he's
That's
not
incredible.
using any of that stuff, right? He's been sticking to his own platform, True Social, that he launched. Um, that was valued at billions of dollars, and I think
Right.
there's been financial questions of the stability of that platform and financial position of it and whatnot. But nonetheless, he's strictly communicating with people that follow him through that platform, and he's not really needing to play nice with the media. Never has really. He never has really played nice with the media,
He
anyways,
doesn't
right?
he doesn't kowtow to anybody. So
Yeah, and so it reminded me of that adage of how marketing rules the world, and how this event just sent shockwaves throughout the planet, and how some are saying that just guaranteed him the ticket, right? That just punched his ticket to the presidency. And I thought about how that relates towards the power of marketing and the power of like owning your own media and your branding. What are some lessons that business owners can take away from that, and saying the power of marketing, the power of owning your own media and your messaging is important? And how would you leave people off with that?
you know, um, the Trump brand, I think, is the strongest brand in the world.
Mm,
And all it did on Saturday was get stronger. And Trump has always been about marketing. He
mm,
understands it intimately. He's not afraid of it. He's not afraid of getting out there, and he drives his own narrative. and he markets like crazy. You know, I don't know. I think he should be back on all those platforms, and and I think he does need those platforms. But I say that also couched in the fact that he changed politics and the way you win, because
Mm,
the way you win is you get that moderate middle that is going to sway left or right.
mm,
You're both sides. The left is going to have a solid base, the right has a solid base, and you got to get that vote in the middle. Trump blew that up because he increased his base.
mhm,
He increased the people that were coming out and getting involved. And so
mm,
he changed the formula on all of that. And so and we talk about disruption a bit. There's disruption in politics right there. And I think with these
yeah,
platforms and these medias, we need to be thinking about how do we disrupt our markets?
yeah,
I mean, Trump is the ultimate disruptor, and Biden's trying to disrupt as well,
right,
but, they're very different camps, and Trump doesn't seem to slow down. Like him or not, something's working in his favor. And so, but I think for the small business person, medium-sized business, we need to think about it's like if you have a niche, if you have a certain market space that you're targeting to get the word out, to get more business, to strengthen your business, to make sure you got stuff in the pipeline. So if other customers fall off, I'm thinking about manufacturing because they only have so much capacity. Do you have visibility in your space to do that? And I'll tell you what, um, people are responding to the personal marketing and the personal connections,
mhm,
and I think people need to be thinking about how they're going to talk, literally speak to their clientele, not just do fancy commercials. Those help, but
yeah,
how they're going to actually speak to their industry, to their market space, to their niche. And I'll tell you what, this space that you and I are on right now, the some of the predictions are saying it's over 300 billion a year right now,
mm,
and by 2034 it'll be 1.3 trillion a
wow,
year.
wow,
So it's growing every year. It's going to grow. That means everybody's competition is eyeballing it and trying to figure it out.
mm,
And it's like marketing has always been important. It's always been the thing that's overlooked by small businesses, and because they get their fill and they think they have enough, but it's like, but you got to keep the pipeline primed. And I'll tell
right,
you what, if you're not on and understanding digital marketing and digital media, then you're stepping way behind, and the disruption is going to leave you in the dust.
mm, absolutely. Great note to leave off on. As another reminder, do your homework on all this that's taking shape. Man, this is getting so excited as the year's going on. For some, they might get a little scared, others getting excited, but nonetheless, you can't deny that it's been an exciting ride up until this point. It's going to get even more exciting as the months
Yes,
come
it
on. So,
is.
we're looking forward to seeing what's happening. Well, for everybody else that's been tuning in today, thank you for tuning in to Behind the Business on the Boise Beat. I'm Gordie Tamayo signing off. Until next time.